David Brewster here, new episode of Chordplay. This is the Chords of Voivod, and I've had some requests to feature some of Voivod's music, and I do want to take a second and acknowledge the fact that a few viewers out there have been patiently waiting for this episode. One of those viewers I know has been waiting like 2 years, so I do apologize for the delay, but we're finally here, and we're going to look at some Voivod. And Voivod formed in Quebec, Canada in 1982, and was initially kind of a hardcore punk thrash metal band. And then as time went on, they released more albums and more music. They started to reveal this experimental progressive metal side, and it really brought out more of their influences. You know, bands like King Crimson and Pink Floyd and Rush. And Voivod's definitely very misunderstood and really interesting, different metal band, and that's what this episode's going to focus on. In the guitar department, you have the late, great Dennis D'Amour, also known as Piggy, and he actually passed away in 2005. He had cancer. And they released a few albums, you know, after he was gone, and I think they have released a few albums with a different guitarist, and I'm honestly not that familiar with the modern Voivod. I definitely stuck with the classic, you know, the original Voivod with Piggy on guitar. And definitely Piggy is notoriously known as this great, you know, chord vocabulary of all these strange, kind of twisted triads and partial chords and implied chords and stuff. He's not your average metal guitarist. I mean, yeah, there are power chords, but he always was twisting and turning the notes around. Really interesting band. And Piggy's reign with the group, they released 12 albums with Piggy. And I think, like I said, I think they've released like 2 or 3 with a different guitarist. But there's nothing like that classic Voivod. And it definitely took me a little time to kind of wrap their music around my, you know, around my ears and my fingers. Because I feel like a tourist on vacation. You know, I'm not really that familiar with Voivod's music. And I do want to thank all the viewers out there for suggesting and recommending this band, because I dove in deeper to Voivod's music than I ever have, you know, preparing for this lesson. The music in this episode is going to come from 3 classic Voivod albums, and I did actually listen and visit all of their material, all 15 albums. I think they've had 14 or 15 albums, something like that. But I did listen to everything, but I did lock on to this classic era, you know, back in the 80s with Voivod. So here we go. The opening, that's the song Ravenous Medicine from the album Killing Technology, and it's something like this. So it actually starts with this single note riff, and it's 2 single notes, but he's really kind of flirting with a B flat 5, but it's flipped upside down because you're grabbing B and then that F note. So instead of this, we're going the other way, down to the flat 5, and then you're going to move to just a regular F sharp there, like a B5, but it's inverted or flipped upside down. Right? So instead of going up, we're going down. Right? So it's really just back and forth, that B to F and then B to F sharp, and you kind of let the notes ring together where it kind of forms a partial chord. Like that. And then you distinctly hear a B5 to a B flat 5. Just lower that F sharp to F, and there's your B flat 5. Then you're moving all the way up here. And that's basically an implied like B sus2. You could think of it like that, because you're doing it like this. And then this is really unusual. That's an implied B flat 9 sharp 11 right there. You definitely hear B as the root right there. Really ugly and sinister chords mixed with that B5 and B flat 5 down here. Hearing like a stacked power chord eventually, and it might just be my imagination, but I'm hearing that, and then I'm hearing this huge, B flat 5. You could also think of that as an F flat 5, like that. Kind of answering that B power chord stack. Like I said, that might just be my imagination, but definitely Piggy was a big fan of this flat 5 chord, whether you want to think of that as a B flat 5 or an F flat 5. But we're going to see this shape a lot in this lesson. So right there, it's just kind of my own mutation. If you didn't play it that way, it still sounds good. And then that B sus2 to B flat 9 sharp 11. The song continues there, but there's actually a music video from that song from back in the day, and you can distinctly see Piggy playing these shapes. They rarely ever show this, progression, but they do distinctly show what he's doing right there. So you can definitely, gain something just from watching music videos. Remember that. Next example reveals more of Piggy's fascination with this flat 5 chord, and this is the song X-Ray Mirror from the album Nothingface, and it's this gradual growing chord riff like this. Definitely wake up the neighbors with that. And it actually just starts with this single root note right there, and you're kind of doing like a drum rudiment rhythm on that single note. And then you're going to change that to an E flat 5, so add that B flat, so now you're playing 2 notes but using that same rhythm. And then add another E right there, so now a 3 note E flat 5 and do that same rhythm. And then add another B flat right there, so now it's a 4 note E flat 5 like that. Really interesting, and we're going to see a lot of this flat 5 action from Piggy in the upcoming examples. Next up is the title track from the album Nothingface with the song Nothingface, and this totally has a King Crimson kind of sound to it like this. So it starts with a super obnoxious riff right here, and it's just all implied and partial chords. So you can think of that however you want. It's really just dyads, 2-note chords. It's like a partial, like C sharp minor to B right there. So you can think of that however you want. It's just abstract and weird. That's almost like an F sharp 5 to an F5, like partial chords. Really weird. And then right there it moves to a C flat 5, Piggy's favorite chord right there. Sounds like King Crimson right there. And then you get into this like kind of picked, dreamy part. It's kind of loosely based around G minor, like this. So it's like that G, and you're just playing the open D and open G string with these, you know, fretted notes on the low E, but a G to a B flat, and then an A to a C, B flat to a D to a C, and then you want to pull off D to C, like this. Contrast to the weird King Crimson, you know, partial chords, and then that flat 5 chord, and then you have this dreamy picked part. Really interesting song. Next up is Tribal Convictions from the Dimension Hot Tross album. That's actually a really cool Voivod album, and Tribal Convictions is something like this. Reveals a little bit of Voivod's Rush influence, because that change totally reminds me of something you might hear Alex Lifeson do. The first part, you've got this palm muted low E open with this aggressive, you know, rhythm. So right there, it's low E open, palm muted, and then that G, F to E, and then a B flat 5 power chord to an A 5 power chord, and then that G to F single note like that. Do that low E open again. Then you're doing an F major, like a partial F major bar chord to a G partial G major bar chord. Right there, you're going to play the high E and B open. That's going to change that G major to a G6 implied. Like that. And then do that F to G again. And then right there, you're going to do F, G, F, the open strings, and then back to that F to G. Something like that. So slowly. And right there, when you get to that G, go right back to the first riff. Song for sure. Next up is the title track from the Killing Technology album with the song Killing Technology, and it's really just a 4-chord riff. It's really basic, but this is one of the first things when I was listening to Voivod's music. This riff just grabbed me. I mean, the tone is great, there's this attitude, and like I said, it's just 4 chords, but it's so cool, like this. And it's so evil sounding. I love stuff like this. So that's actually a stacked B5. So B5 over F sharp. You could just play that as a B5 power chord, but why not stack it and fatten it up, because it sounds massive like that. And if you listen to the album, you can definitely hear it's a huge sounding chord. So I think it's more than just a power chord. And that could be it, but I kind of like stacking it like that. And the very next chord is just an implied G major. It's just 2 notes. And then an implied G sharp major. Just move that, you know, dyad up to up 1 fret. And then you're going back to an F5 or F power chord. So it's this weird twisted series of chords here, here, and then there. And the notes are all kind of overlapping overlapping and twisting amongst themselves. Really cool. And like I said, it's very basic, just 4 chords, but it grabbed my attention as soon as I heard it. It sounds like an angry monster growling or something. Really cool. Last but not least is the song Cosmic Drama, and this is also from the Dimension Hatros album, and I saw some very strange transcriptions and online tab for this song. I believe Piggy's actually just tapping implied chords. He also has this kind of spooky, like, reverb. It sounds like it's in a big hall or a hallway or something like this. Really cool. So it's basically an implied E5 right there, because you're tapping, an E and a B, and you're fretting with your fret hand a B and an E. So it's really just, the notes of an E5 tapped and fretted like that. And take that fretted part, move it up 1 fret, and now that's going to be an implied, E flat 9, flat 13. Sick. You can go back to that E flat, or just the E5. And you're going to move all the way down here where you're holding a C sharp and a G, and that's an implied E minor 7. So you're kind of creating a chord progression. But you're doing it in a very unusual way. You're tapping it instead of just strumming it or playing it like this. And he starts going crazy. Or something like that, but I really just want to demonstrate that chord progression that's tapped. That's so cool. Sounds like horror movie music. It's just sinister and so spooky. Really cool. That's going to wrap this episode of Chordplay with the Chords of Voivod. And like I mentioned earlier, they're kind of a misunderstood, overlooked, kind of obscure band. I mean, they're from Canada. Definitely, Canadians are aware of Voivod. A lot of Americans are aware of Voivod. I know they have some overseas, fans. They do have a very loyal and dedicated fan base, kind of a cult following. But it is kind of an obscure group. It's not like Metallica or somebody. Even though Voivod's been on the scene, just about the same amount of time Metallica has been too. But it's just one of those groups that, they never really had like a super huge hit. Nothingface did hit the charts, and they had videos and stuff. They were on Headbangers Ball and stuff back in the day. But they never exploded. They never had an Enter Sandman or whatever. They kind of stuck to their own kind of style and sound. And very strange and abstract and unusual. Experimental metal for sure. And I like it, so I definitely want to thank everybody again for suggesting Voivod, because it exposed me to a completely different guitarist and approach to playing metal, which of course is Piggy, a legend of metal guitar. That's going to wrap this episode, so please leave some feedback and comments and subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.